Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier that a Jewish neshama will recoil if they see a nun or a priest in their garb.
Yeah.
So why do you imagine that these Jewish people will fall for Jesus? What's the attraction for them?
That's a good question. I mentioned earlier that Jews normally recoil at Christianity more than anything else, and it's true. And Christians complain, like, well, if you're so against us, you must really be against Buddhists, because that's got to be really, really different. So if that's the case, your question is, why do people follow Jesus? The reason is that most people, almost no one who has never been a Christian, there's a lot of negatives in that. So let me just rephrase that. Unless you have been a Christian, you can't understand this. And this was the most difficult thing for me to wrap my brain around, is why are Christians Christians? I used to buy the line that it's in the Old Testament. There's hundreds of prophecies all pointing to Jesus. And that's why I would believe. That's what you're told, and it's not true. It is the line, but it's not true. The reason why Christians are Christians is because they love Jesus. If you don't know that, you don't understand it, you've never been near it. And you therefore couldn't, if you ask that question, I know that you could have never been a Christian in your life. Because every person who is part of this idolatry knows that it is in love with a man named Jesus, period, end. And they don't want to go to hell, and they don't want to reject Jesus. Always the word is reject. I can't reject. And the reason that is, why is the word, you want me to reject Jesus? You reject Jesus. Why is this word reject so much a part of that reject word? Always reject. What do you mean reject? Because Jesus really it's such an attractive personality, heroine in the Gospels that are all very well written. There's a very, the characters are very, very well developed, the villains and so on. So what Jesus is the one who will never reject you. He'll always love you. Everyone else might have turned their back on you. Your best friend betrayed you. Your wife was disloyal to you. Your father beat you. The people you loved hurt you the most, but Jesus will never turn his back on you. Do you got that? It's raw avodah zarah. It is not this. Now what happens, I'm going to tell you how it works. Once someone's in love with Jesus and they surrender to Jesus, then they're very happy to discover Isaiah 53. Oh, thank God, I can find a text in the Jewish Bible that upholds my Jesus who I love, who died for my sins, because I'm a filthy, dirty sinner, unworthy of salvation. There's nothing that I can do to save myself from hell. There's no works. Paul was speaking to our lowest part, the part that is throwing up on the streets of lower Manhattan. And that's what Esav appeals to, our lowest part, the behemoth in us, the part that feels inadequate. I'm unworthy. God must hate me. When I'm going to die, God's going to give it to me. There are things I've done I would never tell my wife, never tell my husband. But God knows I'm surely lost. There's no possible action I can take in my life to be saved. But Jesus, he'll never forget you. Let me tell you something. If you don't know this, then you cannot possibly penetrate what is really going on in the schematic. Then the verses come in later. Now, what happens is the following. Listen very carefully. If I was betrayed by everybody, or the people, because let's face it, who are the people who've hurt you in your life? A cashier at Walmart? Who are the people that broke your heart? Who was it? Some salesperson in Toys R Us? No. The people you love the most, who are closest to you, broke your heart and ripped your soul to pieces, that you're still recovering from the damage they did to you. You were betrayed and rejected by your own family, and probably for good reason. That means when you study racism, a very important nakuda, central theme of racism is, or people who have been hurt, is that deep down the victim really believes it. This is very important. Deep down, you know what my father did to me? You know how he threw me out of the house? My mother never accepted me. But truth is, I'll bet you she was right. I really am. My sister was always a better person. She was always prettier inside and outside. I was never a good person. You got it? So therefore, this is the behemoth. This is the lower half. This is the part of low self-esteem. And he gave his life willingly for me. So now here's the rub. Here's the rub. You want me to do to Jesus what my Father did to me? You want me to reject him? You got it? That's how it works. The passage is coming later. Now, I will tell you the Mishnah will say, no, baloney. I just happened to be reading Isaiah 7:14, describing a civil war between Achaz and the northern kingdom and Syria. And it just plitzling fell on Isaiah 7:14 as I was in the Rockefeller Museum examining the Dead Sea Scrolls. I just happened to be looking at some Nachal Chever text, and just piklich, I happened to fall on Zechariah 12:10, and I was convinced. How could that be? Because Zechariah 12:10 is describing events that will happen at the end of days in Mechemes Gog uMagog, where Jerusalem will be a heavy, burdensome stone to all those who are against it. No missionary ever was reading Isaiah 1, 2, 3, 4, and the hearts of those who were of the kingdom of David were shaking like leaves in the tree, and Ritzin and Pekah and Ritzin, and the Syria, the northern kingdom of Israel, and Syria were gathered for an alliance against the southern kingdom, against Malchus Yehuda, with a very wicked king. And then it says, Hine al Maharav Elizabeth. Oh yeah, I accept Jesus in my life. That never happened. So I will take your question next. So therefore you have to understand that the way it works is that Jesus changed my life. Moreover, if I believe it, I'm going to heaven. I don't want to go to hell. And I am sure there's nothing I can do in my life that would get me into heaven. And I'll bet you Paul in Romans chapter 3 is right. And that's how it works. And that's in order to help someone, you've got to recognize that. If you don't understand where it's coming from, it's really coming from a good place. Meaning it's coming from a person who's very hungry. Whereas Judaism appeals to the highest level. The Torah never says such things. The Torah says in Deuteronomy 30, don't think that the law is far away, it's far off, it's over the sea. Who will bring it to us? Don't say such a thing. That it's in heaven, who will bring it down to us? The word is near to you, it's in your heart, that you may do it, the end of verse 14. And Paul quotes this text in Romans chapter 10, verse 8. And anybody who looks it up would do tshuva right now, where Paul quotes the text and it says the word is near to you, and he stops and he doesn't say that you may do it. And then in verse 15 of Deuteronomy 30, Moses of blessed memory tells us, before you I place life and death, good and evil. You must choose life that you may live. Verse 16 and 17 and 18 tell us exactly what it means to choose life and reject evil. What is evil? What is good? And verse 19, I call heaven and earth as witnesses. Before you I place life and death, good and evil. You must choose life. God doesn't treat us like children. Treats us like men. Be men. Grow up. Choose to connect to me. Have a relationship with me. I love you and I want to be close to you.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ועת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה